Hi, everyone. Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast, and this wonderful MAAP community, which today is our 1 year anniversary. I can't even believe it. We've been here every night at 6:30 Eastern Time to talk about how to make a plan for your pet, how to make sure your pet is safe. Now that we recognize things like COVID can happen and totally out of your control, your pets may be homeless. So if you'd like to know more, please go to my website, hamiltonlawmediation.com, download whatever information you might like. But right now, I'm going to talk about three things before we turn to our attendees. The first one is uh, the MAP plan stands for something. It stands for making a plan, addressing the needs of your pet, appointing caregivers, and publishing that plan, which has to be in writing. If you go to the website, you'll learn more about it, but that's why we have this MAP call, because MAP stands for something. It navigates the journey your pet's going to take if you can't care for it. And if it's only in your will, just make sure you die. Because if you don't, the plans in your will don't come to fruition. I know everybody thinks that's a pretty harsh way to put it. However, I want you to understand that your trust and estate attorney doesn't tell you that, and they should. So ask them. All my plans are in my will. If I become incapacitated, we call it the 7 Ds. So death is one, divorce is another, disaster, disease, delay, dementia, all sorts of Ds. If you have any of those, then of course that plan doesn't come into fruition except for death. That's it. Not dementia, not delay, not disease, not disaster, not disability, none of them. So just make sure when you talk to your trust and estate attorney, you ask them, and if you need help, call me. That's why I'm here. So tonight, I want to start off with the little bit of a naughty guy who's in the White House right now. And I'm not talking about President Biden. I'm talking about his dog, Major, who another nibble on another person in the White House. This doesn't bode well for the rescue of dogs at this juncture because everyone who has dogs and knows about dogs and rescues dogs knows that there's a huge transition from one house to another. There's a huge transition from rescue to a family life. So Major is just probably overwhelmed by everything that's going on in the White House. And they have just, again, I believe, hired a trainer to make sure Major can matriculate in the White House safely. And if not, they may choose, and it is not a sign of aggression, it is just a sign of common sense, to buy one of those really neat camouflaged muzzles so that Major can run around and not have to worry about being naughty. And everyone around Major can greet him without the worry that he might take a little bit of a nibble. Did not break the skin. There was no, hysterics, but he just definitely did not consider whoever it was somebody he wanted to be friends with. So without saying more, just remember that rescue dogs need a little extra TLC. Sometimes so do purebred dogs if you don't socialize them enough. And God help us, during COVID, we are not socializing our dogs the way we should. The other piece I want to add for today is I did a webinar with the International Boarding and Pet Sitting Association, and they have the dubious distinction to be first responders. You want to know why? Because they have been taking care of first responders' dogs who are working 24 to 36-hour shifts without really charging them very much, because they want to be on the front lines helping these first responders care for their dogs while also caring for people. So I want to do a big shout out to the International Boarding and Pet Sitting Association for their group's efforts in being responsive to first responders. And finally, there was a post, if any of you know Steve Dale, he is a radio talk show host on pet matters. He writes for the Chicago Tribune, and today he put up a post that says all pet stores should be closed. And whether or not you think pet stores should be closed, the requirement to keep records and to meet certain standards are in place for pet stores. these requirements and standards are not codified for rescues. So when you think about adopt, don't shop, remember that not all rescues are created equal. There is no oversight for rescue. So although it's a great um, concept, we have to be cognizant of the fact that people don't necessarily care for the dogs any better in a rescue than in a pet store. And maybe we need to work together to make sure that all pets are bred correctly, raised correctly, and placed correctly. And with that, I want to really have a great conversation with one of our multi-time guests, Kieran Walsh, because he has put together a book that I hope to put a forward in, and I hope to have him here to talk about when it's fully published. But it's going to teach children how to be responsible owners, and by teaching the children, teaching the parents how to be responsible owners. So, Kieran, tell us a little bit more about where you are with the book and how it's when it's going to be ready and how we can get it, because I know it's going to be in the UK and it's going to be in Ireland, and hopefully I can help or assist or do something to bring it over here in the United States.
Debbie, thank you very much for having me this evening, or sorry, I should say early morning your time. um,
Oh no, it's
one,
evening in my time. I'm going to get a drink after this.
well, one of the items in the book, and I'll start on that in a moment, is actually highlighted this week by the Biden, the dog in the White House. And there's a very simple rule of three, which is put in children's language. When a dog comes from a rescue shelter, it needs about 3 days, first off, just to get
A
over the
minimum,
fact that
right?
that it's not in the rescue shelter anymore. So there's a sudden absence of the noise, sudden absence of all the stress. And what is this place, or what can I expect? So if you like, the dog is in a place between unease and its body has huge pressures. Is it shutting down, or where is this strange place? And people act differently. So you need 3 days where the dog can be on its own, sleep most of the time. Then 3 weeks where it sort of gets the idea, oh, there's a garden here, and where I used to live, there's only this much room and cages. And then it needs 3 months to really figure out how the family works. And after 3 months, it's at home. And the difficulty for the dog that's imposed by many humans is they have an idea how it should behave from minute one. And yet, when we go to our offices, if we put that type of imposition on an intern or somebody new, we'd be up in front of a tribunal very quickly.
Yep.
So
I
just
have
think,
to I have to tell you that is so true for any dog, and you know this as well, but for a rescue dog, absolutely, because they've had some traumas that we don't even know about because we don't necessarily know from minute one
mm,
to when they get to the rescuer shelter and then when they get to the home. So you're sort of buying something or adopting something that you don't have a roadmap to. But even with us who raise our puppies and tell the people exactly what they went through, I always say this dog is going to be on its best behavior for the first 3 days. Then it's going to be on good behavior for about 3 weeks. And
mm,
then when they know they've wheeled their way into your heart, because puppies do that, they become hellions. But you live through it. And like you said,
mm,
you really have to know that there is a huge transition period.
true, true. Well, the work that my team have put together, and when I say team, there's probably about 50 people that have been working on this enterprise for the past year. Um, so there's basically two parts. There's a program on a website and this ebook. And the program on the website is basically how to be the perfect pet parent or the responsible owner. And we have a very simple course, and it goes through all the issues you'd need to know about how to source a dog, be it from a rescue shelter or be it from a breeder. We go into the details about the amount of space, the different
Right.
breeds. And as a before I qualified as a professional dog trainer, I spent about 5 years as a volunteer in a rescue shelter. And there are two types of dogs that end up in rescue shelters. So, firstly, you have hard luck cases, and in mediation, you deal with these every day of the week, Debbie. Where, well, okay, we're no longer living together, so where does the dog go, or who gets the dog? Then on the other side, it's a case of, well, we didn't know what we were getting into at the beginning.
It was so small when we got it, Kieran.
Exactly, exactly. And those St. Bernard pups look lovely when they're pups.
Yeah,
Now,
they
give it
said it would only get to be 20 pounds.
yeah, and it eats more than the entire family put together. So the second group where they didn't know what they were getting involved in is the biggest problem for rescue shelters, because by the time the dog gets to the rescue shelter, its mind is fairly messed up and they're the hardest to rehome. So what you get is 1 in 5 dogs in rescue shelters were in a previous rescue shelter.
Right.
So what this program can do is, if anybody is actually interested in adopting a dog and they do the course, at the end of it, there's a very simple test and they can get a certificate which is sent to their email. So they can turn up at the rescue shelter and they can say to the rescue shelter, look, I have a certificate here on the phone. I've done the basic course. So then the rescue shelter manager knows, okay, here's somebody who is
They
not
know
wasting
the
time.
they know the poop,
They know the
literally and
story.
figuratively.
Yes, and they know what they're looking for. So this will save every rescue shelter a huge amount of time, possibly we'll say 10 to 20% of their annual hours, labor hours, because they've got a high prospect. And on top of that, the 20% of return rate will shrink, I would say, possibly to 3% or lower. There
Yep.
will always be a few, but anybody who does the course, they already know how to mitigate against the danger. And we go through everything and how to choose a dog trainer. And we go through the steps. Are they professionally qualified? Here are the different professional bodies. Are they
Ask
insured?
questions, listen carefully. Right.
Right. Don't be afraid to ask for the testimonials and so on. Now, the ebook is designed specifically for the 6 to 10-year-old. And the reason for it is this is where a lot of the pressure comes from.
To get a dog. Right.
You get a dog and the parents say, okay, enough pressure, lads. Here you are. Here's the credit card. We'll get one from the nice advertisement online. And they don't understand that very often they're supporting a mafia operation by buying it online. And I have a point here to underline. When you might think, oh, well, isn't that very unfortunate? But actually, it's a mega industry. And there's 4 levels of criminal revenue. So at the very top, it's people trafficking, white slavery, prostitution. That they're all in one sort of messy category.
Right.
But they're basically, that's the revenue by exploiting humans to the last. And there can be black labor as well. The next category is drugs. Third category is firearms. But underneath that, believe it or not,
Dogs.
stolen dogs, puppy mills. So the whole idea, the whole point of this will sound crazy. This is like something out of Narnia, but it's the 6 to 10-year-old actually provide the raw materials through emotional blackmail or pressure on the parents to keep a lot of that industry going.
Yeah.
So the point of the book is it's designed through a dog called Leo, or one-eyed Leo. And this character actually does exist in the real world. I've met him over the last few months. I've adopted him for a few months. And one-eyed Leo was in a forever home. He had a car. He was hit by a speeding car. The owners couldn't afford the vet bills. He was left in a rescue shelter for a few years, then adopted by a very responsible farmer who's an entrepreneur. And when I was staying on this farm, the dog gravitated towards me, and I built a little kennel for him. And I just thought he's there for a reason. So he is the hero of the book.
Yep.
And so the idea behind the book is, if one-eyed Leo was to go to a family that had a 6 and 10-year-old, these are the terms and conditions he would like to see. So he teaches the 2 make-believe children everything they need to know: how to source the dog, how to feed it, what happens if there's an accident in the house. And Leo's idea is, hold on, you shouldn't be angry with me. I haven't seen anybody inside the house going to the toilet. I didn't know there was a toilet in the house. I haven't seen people going outside to use the garden when they want to go. So there's a little bit of the reverse psychology, but at the end of the day, what I'm looking for is the children to go through this, and there's a narrative, Leo speaks, then there's a learning task. Now, we don't teach the children how to train a dog. We just say, oh, but do you understand? You have to learn about this, you have to learn about the next thing. And hopefully at the end of it, we'll have the opposite of the rescue shelter situation, where we'll have 50%, or not, well, we'll have a section, right, whatever the percentage falls as it will.
Right.
We'll have a percentage of children saying, oh, no, we thought it was a good idea, but, and we'll have the other 50% saying, this dog is going to be our teacher, our companion, and our expert.
We're up to the task.
We're up to it. And we didn't think we had this much, but hold on a second. If we can manage this dog, we can manage anything.
It teaches them in little increments how to manage their life. I love this, because what I heard you say was that it gives them the information they need to choose dogs correctly for their lifestyle, for their size of their apartment. I was just on a call where people were talking about whether or not a big dog or a little dog should go into the city. And it really isn't about whether it should go into the city. It's about how much time the person has to donate to it, because you could have a large garden and put the dog out all day long, and the dog will be really lonely. And then, it's a lunarscape because it's digging holes or it's jumping the fence. So requiring a dog simply to have a fenced in yard might not be good enough. You might actually want to be able to walk the dog. So this book is going to talk about, I'm sure, the things that you have to consider before you get the dog. And the things you have to consider when the dog is a puppy, which means you have to be around a lot more often. You have to walk it a lot more because it doesn't know to go outside. And I don't know if One-Eyed Leo learned how to use the toilet, but that's not quite what we want them to do. And then as they grow and as they age, the kids will grow and age and learn responsibility. No, I can't go to my friend's house right away after school because I got to walk Leo. No, I can't stay for dinner because I got to go home and feed Leo. I have to tell you, Kieran, this is a book after my own heart, because when I stopped working the first time, I started a company called Pet Network Incorporated, your connection to the right pet. And I did, on a consultation basis, exactly what you did. I sat down with the family and I said, okay, these are the 10 things you'll need to do if you get a pet. And of course, everyone said, well, mom will do that. Mom will do that. Mom will do that. And I know we've spoken about this before. Your book is to take that off mom's shoulders and put it on the 6 to 10-year-old shoulders if the 6 to 10-year-olds are clamoring for the dog, because it isn't a video game. It doesn't come and go as you turn on the electricity.
Yes, and just to mention that, Debbie, you're probably one of the favorite phrases in a lawyer's life is, would you like to sign on the dotted line?
Yeah.
And in each section of this book, well, not each section, but most of the sections, here's the learning task. The child has to print their own name and sign on the dotted line, date it.
Yep.
So, and some of these, the adult can print it out and put certain parts in different parts of the house, like behind the toilet door, in the reception area where the dog is going to sleep. So if somebody thinks somewhere down the line, well, we didn't actually agree to that.
Yeah, and we didn't really mean it when we agreed to it. Wait, let's see where the line says, I agree to walk the dog 3 times a day. Only kidding.
Yeah. So it's, I'd have to say it's
a labor of love, and I can't wait till it comes out.
It's labor is the word, all right. And there's roughly 50 people have put a huge amount into it. And I've met some very special people in doing this. The artist who's drawing Leo had a very interesting history. She was commissioned by the Ukrainian government to document the changes of Chernobyl over many years. And what's basically happening with this book is that this will be an exhibition that's only going to be for the eyes of anybody who buys the book.
This will be like the book by Charlie Mackey, right?
Yeah, yeah. Then we have a childcare expert who...
Sorry. Go ahead.
Who has helped to take the text from all the dog experts and rewrite it in a way that a child can understand it. And what's beautiful about this is English isn't her first language.
Wow.
So this is a very talented, I would say, expert in both linguistics and childcare. Who's her name is Melanie. Now her Italian name is I won't pronounce it because I will get it wrong. Mestrigo, and I love the last letters in her name. IGO. I go.
I go.
And I go, and I just love that. So if I can't pronounce her name properly, at least I can understand where the last three letters are driving this.
Yep.
So,
I can't wait to see it, because One-Eyed Louie is just the perfect participant in teaching children how to, and by teaching the children, you're going to teach the parents and the next generation, because they're going to also know that if you get a pet, it's a responsibility. I know we've talked about this often, Kieran, that people got a lot of dogs during COVID because they were home and it was a great time. And now shelters and rescues are a little worried people will turn their dogs in because they don't have your book to figure out what they should have done. And the dogs are, older and maybe naughty or maybe not. But really being able to understand the commitment you're taking on. I always say, I commit to my dogs from whelping box to grave. So if it never works out or it doesn't work out, I always take them back and fully refund your purchase price for the life of the dog, because I decided to bring that dog here. So if you decide to bring a dog into your life, getting this book beforehand, reading it with your children, having them understand what this commitment is, and signing a contract with you that yes, they will get up and walk it. And yes, they will get up and feed it. And yes, they will save their money and bring it to the vet, and have it bathed or bathe it outside and learn how to cut its nails. I mean, there are so many things, right, Kieran, that are the upkeep of the dog that make the dog comfortable. You can't not cut the dog's nails.
Well, we some things we go into detail and many we don't. But
right.
The point is we build a structure, and really it's for the children. If they really want a dog, they're going to prove it.
Yeah, the life sustaining thing. So going to the vet would include cutting its nails. So that's probably in there. Feeding it absolutely is in there. Walking it absolutely is in there. And then making it a good citizen, which means not jumping on people, not running away, maybe alter and spay it so that it doesn't become a mother or a father. So it really is important to make sure you do that. It really is important.
Lovely.
I'm so glad you're here. It's 7 o'clock where I am. It's midnight where Kieran is in Tenerife, which makes me very jealous because it's so beautiful there. But for all my MAAP community, I'm so grateful that this has been an incredible year. I look forward to another great year. If we can skip COVID, I'll be there. I think we're on our way. There are some pockets here in the United States. How about where you are, Kieran? Are there any pockets in Tenerife?
Pockets?
Of COVID?
Well, it's everywhere, and it is here too, and it's gotten worse in the last few weeks.
Yeah, we're getting worse here in New York. We're one of the states that are colored red, which never makes you happy when it comes to the British outbreak or the South African outbreak. So, Kieran, until next week, stay safe. Keep me informed about this book. I love it. If you're getting a dog, please stay tuned. Get a copy of Kieran's book when it's ready, so that it'll be an ebook. It'll be easy to do, and it's inexpensive. And if you buy the book with the course, it's even less expensive. So make sure that you do what you can do to understand what pet ownership is. And then when you get that pet, make a MAAP plan. So if God forbid something happens to you, your dog doesn't end up in the shelter and have to go through that cycle again. Kieran, thanks so much for coming. And until
it's been a pleasure, Debbie.
Until next week, this is Deborah Hamilton, Hamilton Law Mediation, the Why Do Pets Matter podcast. Don't miss it. It's on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Podbeam. And of course, this wonderful MAAP community that I look forward to spending time with every Wednesday night. And until next week, take care and kiss your dog for me.